Friends. I'm Amy, and this is A-Star Reads, and it's been a long time no see. I've missed you. It's been a few weeks. I've been busy, but now it's time for a Sunday Sum Up. So it has been a busy time, and like some things great, busy, you know, school stuff, fantastic. I have completed my final college course. I'm so excited about it. Next term, I will just be student teaching in the class the whole time. So actual assignments for college courses completely done. And that feels amazing because I was getting burnt out. And yesterday, I did my very first day substitute teaching where I actually got paid. And it was fantastic because it was actually with my students, with the students in my class that I'm student teaching in. And we went to this big track meet, which was a blast. It was a little bit of a rough start in the beginning of the day because understandably, the students were so excited that when we were having morning meeting, every single time we would start, like I'd ask one student something or what have you, their volume would ratchet up, and the side conversations were going wild because they were so excited. And I'm like, okay, we need to stop the side conversation. So there was quite a few times that I had to be like, okay, you need to bring it down. And then they would ratchet up, bring it down. I get that we're all excited, but we have to get through these expectations and stuff before we go on this trip. And so it was difficult in the very first part of the day to keep them at a volume that wasn't going to disturb other classes because they were just so excited. But we made it through and we made it to the track meet. And then they got to scream as much as they wanted. And they were exhausted by the end of the day. It was so funny because we had our like final recess before they had to go home and get on the bus. And most of them were waiting by the door to go home because they were just so tired. So it was kind of funny. As far as how everything else is going, my mom is doing really well. I know some people are wondering how her surgery has gone. It has gone amazingly. We're like 3 weeks in. She's walking with a cane and she is working her way off of the cane. She can walk without the cane, but she has a lot of fear in trusting her new knee. She's got great range of motion. She hasn't had to be manipulated at all because she's doing her exercises every day and she is at like almost flat. I think she got to a 2 as opposed to a 0 as completely flat. And then bending wise, she got to like 110, so which is really, really good. And her physical therapist is like so proud and impressed. So mom's doing great. I've had some health issues myself recently, and I'm working with a doctor to make sure everything's okay with me. So it's more like gut stuff. So that's fun. And I think that that's pretty much it as far as life updates go. Nothing else has gotten done recently because I've just been focusing on school stuff. I've just really been focusing on that. And it's been a time. So I'm ready to get back to my reading and booktube. I'm so excited about this summer. I'm so excited to do some of the projects I've been wanting to do and just haven't had the time for. And I'm excited to get back to Sunday Sum Ups, I hope. The intention is there. So in this video, I'd like to try and go back over some of the reviews that I had from a few weeks ago. And then hopefully by next weekend, I can do some more reviews in the meantime and get a little bit caught up because I still have like a list of quite a few books that I have to review that I haven't reviewed yet. So I'll give you what I can this week, including maybe a bit of a book haul because I actually have brought in so many books in the last month or so and show you a little bit of B-roll like I usually do. I hope all is well with you. Please let me know in the comment section down below how you've been doing, how your reading has been going. If there's anything you'd like to share, I'd just like to hear from you because I feel like I know it hasn't been that long, but it has been long for me considering I was getting pretty consistent with my uploads. So we'll see if I can get back on track. I've got a few really fun projects in the making, so I hope those come to fruition in the next month or so. And keep an eye out for that. Hey, what are you doing? Take a deep breath and push your knee down. Look at that baby girl. One more. Push it down. There you go. 1 1,000. 2 1,000. 3 1,000. 4 1,000. 5 1,000. my allergies have been really bad, and so I got pretty froggy, and you can still hear a little bit of gravel in my voice and the congestion in my nose, but it's better. It's way better than it was. The 2 books I want to talk about right now, it's been a while since I read them, so let's hope I remember something about them. The first one is Fruits Basket Volume 8 of the Collector's Editions. And obviously I can't tell you too much about this one because it's the 8th in a series. I've been working through this series because it's my friend her favorite manga series. And the last one I read, Volume 7, kind of rekindled my enjoyment of this particular series. And then Volume 8 has sort of not been my favorite again. like this, it's like a roller coaster. I didn't hate it or anything. I think I gave it a 3.25, or let me check, hold on. Actually, I gave it a 3 stars. So I don't know why this particular one wasn't as exciting for me. I think we got a little bit of resolution to our love triangle, and I don't like the direction that one of the characters is going in, and I don't want to say any more than that, but I'm just not as interested in that storyline, and it's becoming a big part of the series, and I'm like, but who are all these people? I just don't care about them. And so that's a bit of a bummer. And then the part that really disturbed me in this one was that there was an age gap relationship, a very extreme age gap relationship, that I didn't feel comfortable about at all. Now, I understand that in different cultures, the age of consent is different in different places. I know that it's changing in some places, and that my own feelings on it are based on my westernized perspective of what we see as taboo and non-taboo here in the US. Now, that being said, I still have strong feelings on it, and I should say that here in the US, we still have states where families can determine what the age of consent is, or the age of consent is much younger than I believe it should be, and that makes me uncomfortable too. So it's just something that makes me really uncomfortable, and it did about this story, especially because it was a really successful relationship and it was kind of celebrated, and so that was rough, and that made this book a lot harder for me to enjoy. Now, I am enjoying this series overall. I do think the concept of these characters that are the Zodiac, the Soma family as the Zodiac members, and the fact that they're cursed is fascinating. And of course we have this wonderful character Toru, who's trying to bring love into these people's lives, and then of course she would love to learn how to end this curse of these Zodiac characters. And so I enjoy all of that. There's just so many dramatic situations in all of these characters' lives, especially in their childhood. So many parents in this are shown as being hugely negligent, absolutely hating their children, and that is really difficult to read about. There's a lot of really dark stuff that happens in this, so it's enjoyable still. I'm going to continue on. I have book 9 with me. I just haven't had a chance to pick anything up lately, and so I will continue on. But yeah, this particular one was 3 stars, and Mom has read the 9th one, and she said it's going to make me uncomfortable too. So I'm like, oh great, I can't wait to find out more about some of these traumatic experiences these characters are having. And I can say that I read literary fiction, and they have some very difficult situations that happen in those kind of books, and yet they don't hit me quite as hard as they're hitting me within this manga series. And maybe it's because of my misconceptions about mangas, and I realize now how dramatic they can be and the kind of subject matter they can bring up. But I guess it just has felt a little hard to enjoy at times. You know, those times where I'm like, this just seems wrong, and why are we celebrating it? So I don't know. So obviously I'm going to change my expectations and know that manga can be just as dark in subject matter as other types of books. And like, I realistically understand that, but I think going into this, I just didn't think about it being that way, because I'm not reading a horror manga, I'm reading more of a contemporary manga. But at this point, I know better, and I'm going to go into book 9 knowing that there's going to be some very dark content in that one as well. So I think 3 stars stands. This is about middle of the road for me as far as my enjoyment goes, and we'll see how things move forward. Okay, the other book I want to talk about is Wicked Fox by Kat Cho. And this is a YA fantasy pattern sort of after Korean dramas. And I feel like I could totally see that influence. I could totally see some of the main aspects of a Korean drama in this. And I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really liked it. It didn't start out that way, though. I didn't start out feeling as strongly about it. And I think that part of the problem was the characters were not characters that I immediately were drawn to. And that did change, and that did build over time with this story. The other thing was that it felt like there was too much going on, too many different ideas, and that at least for the first portion of this, it felt very choppy. The writing and the storyline felt like we're going from one thing to the next, and there's just too much in here. Let's try and make this a cohesive story. And that was kind of how the beginning started out for me. The story centers around Korean folklore and mythology, and it's about these gumihos, which are these 9-tailed foxes. And so you're actually getting little pieces of information about gumiho history, gumiho knowledge, interspersed within the whole story. And I really liked that because it brought a lot more knowledge to someone who doesn't know the mythology, who doesn't know all the folklore. And oftentimes the little bits that were thrown in there, little stories, the little pieces of folklore actually tied into what was happening within the story. So that was very clever, and it was really well done. So in our story, we've got Myung. I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly, but we've got Myung, who's our main character. She is half gumiho, half human. To survive, gumihos have to siphon the energy from male humans. She kind of was able to bypass this feeling of being a murderer by working together with a shaman. Is she a shaman? Something like that. I forget the word for it. Who helped her identify bad men who were bad people, and they didn't deserve to live because of the horrible things they've done and gotten away with. Even though she really didn't feel good about it in general. She hates the fact that she has to siphon energy from other people, and that in the process of siphoning this energy, she ends up killing other people. So because of being a gumiho, her and her mother have to travel from place to place because people start getting suspicious, things start happening, and they can't stay anywhere for too long. So they have moved back to Seoul, and she ends up meeting this boy named Ji-hoon. And he is a young guy. Everybody likes him. He's a pretty cool kid, but he's had a really rough upbringing. He's had a really rough childhood. But he meets Myung, and they end up going to school together. And of course, something sparks between the two of them. Including early on, he finds out that she's a gumiho. And of course, the story goes on from there, a developing relationship, how she's able to remain safe, how she's able to keep him safe. Different things happen. I ended up being very drawn to the characters, which was kind of surprising considering at the beginning, I was having a hard time forming an emotional connection to these characters. I didn't see it, you know? And their behaviors sometimes didn't make sense to me, and their reactions were very dramatic. But then, of course, if you hearken back to Korean dramas, the intention that this one had elements of Korean dramas, had very much the feel of a Korean drama, I feel like that was appropriate, and you really ended up liking these characters at the end. At least I did. So ultimately, it was one of those books that totally grew on me. The writing style grew on me. It was nice that the chapters were short. That was really pleasant. And the mythology component to this was really, really well done. Really lovely. Just reminds me that I'm kind of in my mythology era right now. I'm just loving mythology of all types. And I can't wait to read the next one. I do plan on reading the next one. So if you like YA fantasy, mythology, and Korean dramas, Wicked Fox is like the perfect combination for that. I think give it some time. The characters will definitely grow on you. It takes time for them to show their better sides, and the feeling of disjointedness that the story starts out on does resolve as the story goes along, or at least I got used to the style, and so that made overall the experience of reading this really wonderful. Okay, so the books that I'm gonna tell you about right now are my most recent hauls. I actually have hauled other books. Some of them I have to look for. Others are a whole bunch of middle grade books that I got from the library at the school that I'm currently student teaching at, and my CT, my cooperating teacher, gave me a whole box of books. So I don't know if you're interested in seeing all the middle grade books. If I include those, it'll be in the next Sunday sum up. So let me know in the comment section down below if you want to know what middle grade books I got. I mean, aside from the ones that I picked up especially, these are all just a whole bunch of middle grade books that they were going to get rid of, and I was like, yeah, I'll take them. And I did go through some of the ones that my teacher had because she had some much older ones, but for the most part I took a lot of what I was given. So if you're curious about those books, what I'm hauling for my class that I do want to end up reading at some point, I will include that in the next Sunday sum up. If not, then we don't have to worry about it. I'm going to talk about a couple middle grades here though, because I picked them up especially, and these are ones that I'm looking forward to reading. The first one is When You Trap a Tiger. So on my last day of school, we all met for like a celebration, and it's next to a bookstore. We met next to a bookstore that I love, Village Books. And so I went inside and I went to look at the used books, and this was only $5. This is by Keller. This is a very popular, well-loved middle grade that I've been wanting to read for a while, and everybody that I have heard review it has absolutely loved it. So I want this so I can read it. And this is probably the kind of book, if I really enjoy it, that I would do a read along with my students at some point during the school year, because I have heard that the message in this is really great and the story itself is really fantastic as well. It's really in nice shape too. It doesn't really even look like it's been used. I mean, it probably has been read once. No, I mean, it really just, it looks perfect. So I'm very excited about that. The other one I got while I was there was The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. Now, the reason I got this one is because, for one, I'm very interested in reading it. I have really loved one of Louise Erdrich's other books, gave it 5 stars. Roundhouse, I was kind of middle of the road, but I think if I were to reread it, I might have different feelings about it now, much later on in my life. And this is about a small independent bookstore, so it's bookish. Apparently, one of the store's most annoying customers, Flora, has died. She died on All Souls Day, but she won't leave the bookshop. And I think there's probably much more to this. I have been intrigued by this book ever since I first heard of it, and there's a good chance that I'm gonna love Louise Erdrich's writing because I've liked it before. And this was $10, and it's a hardback, so I couldn't resist. I maybe should have, but I couldn't. It was my last day of class, so I was just so excited. There actually were like 3 other books that I had picked up and I was holding and carrying around with me that were used, but they were $16, and I was like, no, Amy. Put them back. So I actually showed restraint. And then today I went out and was social. Can you believe that? I went and spent some time with some friends. We went to get tacos at this place that I've never been to before. It was a new restaurant, and that was fun. Met some new friends of my friends. And then we decided to go get some Turkish coffee. And across the street from the Turkish coffee shop was one of my other favorite bookstores, which is Henderson's Books. So I went inside and was specifically looking at the $3 books because they sometimes get some really good finds in that $3 book section. So the first one I got was for my class and also for me to read because I've never read this book before, and that is Wonder by RJ Palacio. I have heard so many amazing things about this book, and I heard this is perfect for the 5th grade especially, which is what I'm teaching right now, because it's about this young boy who's 10 and he has had this facial difference, is what it says. His name is August. It has kept him out of school until the 5th grade. Apparently now at this point he is going to be joining mainstream school, and he's got to find his own place within this classroom, within this school, and see where he can stand out and see who he can become. And so I'm looking forward to this because I think that this probably has a really incredible message. And the other $3 book I got is Wild Swans by Chang. Sandy from Miss Reads a Lot does her 1001 books to read before you die countdown thing, and this was one of the ones that she really enjoyed, and when she was talking about it I was incredibly intrigued. So when I saw this on the shelf for $3, I was like, okay, wait, this may be the time to do it. And it's a big one. It's not a small book, but I remember her saying just how much she loved this one. And this is basically a memoir or a story about Chang's family. 3 generations about her grandmother, who was a warlord's concubine, her mother, who was a communist idealist, and I think her parents were both part of like the communist elite in China. And then of course I'm guessing her experience as well. So I really do love generational stories. And I know I haven't been reading quite as much nonfiction lately because I just feel overworked with my brain. But when it comes to like historical memoirs that are much more narrative, I can handle that quite well right now. So I think this is one that I will really enjoy. And the other thing I wanted to get to really fast is my journey through Aldea, because I didn't do a TBR video this month. I did end up finishing Travel to Carador, and that's book finishes on an odd number of pages. I did the mime order, so got that one filled in. So there's my journey. I'm continuing on. So the two choices were Visit a Wizard Tower, book with a prologue, or Stop by the Crossroad Tavern, has an author's note. So those are the two options for June. Visit a Wizard Tower or Stop by the Crossroad Tavern. So as it turns out, one of the books that I need to read that's on my TBR game is The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. And this one has a prologue. July 1956 in Darlington Hall. So I'm definitely going to try getting to this one because I need to get as many of my TBR game books done as I possibly can this month so I don't have to take punishments. Ugh. And this will be the one that I will use for Visit a Wizard Tower. Book with a prologue. Oh, it's gonna be blurry, isn't it? Of course it is. Well, that's the one I'm going for. Sprints. What do you think of that cat, Cece? No, that's Mom growling. Mom's growling at the cat too. Are you done growling now that I started the video? Of course. Cece's sitting by her new friend. She has a new friend. She has never watched TV like this before. So I have finished another book. I finished I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. And this is a memoir about Jennette McCurdy, who's an actress. As a child, she played in the iCarly series on Nickelodeon. And then she had her own spin-off show for a little while. Honestly, I don't know much about Jennette McCurdy aside from what I've learned in this book. So this book ended up working out for me because I have a lot more freedom when it comes to my audiobooks, which is wonderful because then I get books in that I wasn't expecting to read. Everybody's been talking about it. And honestly, it wasn't necessarily a memoir I had any interest in picking up, especially because I don't really have much knowledge of Jennette McCurdy or any sort of attachment to this person. So I was like, okay, well, it's here on script. I typically like when memoirs are narrated by the person who wrote them. And that was the case with this particular book. So I'm like, okay, I'll listen to it. And it was a great experience because you got to hear everything from Jennette's voice. And it's always interesting to hear what people's voices are when they're narrating their own story. Like what choices they make when reading their own story. So I thought it was very fascinating and told me a lot about Jennette, I think. I did struggle a little bit from not having much awareness of this person, of this actress, and having never seen anything that she was in. I think it did affect my enjoyment of it just a little bit. It still was a very, I say enjoyable read, but that's really hard to say when it comes to a story that is very painful and has caused her a lot of pain and trauma throughout her life. I did learn a lot about McCurdy, and I learned a lot about her childhood experiences and how traumatizing they were to her, and how much she convinced herself that her mother wasn't to blame for things. So I think that that was a very interesting perspective. I feel for her. And it has made it so I would be interested in going and watching some of the iCarly episodes just to see what Jennette McCurdy is all about, especially knowing her background, knowing what her childhood was like, knowing what she felt about acting. I ended up giving this a 4-star. I did really enjoy it. It just didn't feel like a higher rating to me because I felt like every single chapter was very anecdotal, and you got little snippets here and there of pieces of her life. And of course, they're the pieces of her life that she feels are the most important to telling her story. But I'm a details kind of girl. This was good. I do like anecdotes. I do like slices of life. I do like information in this fashion. I just typically want more. Like, give me a bigger slice of that life. If you're interested in Jennette McCurdy, or you're also just interested in the Hollywood experience, what people go through, what they deal with, I think this is a great memoir for that. It shows a lot of the underbelly of, especially like this was specifically Nickelodeon, and some of the things that they allow to happen to children or allow to go on and almost encourage in a lot of ways in the way that show business works. So I would recommend this if you're interested in that. If you like memoirs, this is a great memoir, a good one to listen to as well. I felt like it was really well narrated. The way she talked about it was very matter of fact, very straightforward. This is how I think, this is how I feel. And it was very interesting. It was a very interesting delivery. And I actually enjoyed that. I did enjoy that. I thought it was very telling. Cottonwood fluff. Okay, so look at, there's me and my, wow, that's cool. Hey. Okay, so I want to talk about Remarkably Bright Creatures by, who's this by? At the moment, I don't have any internet. I'm not going to run back to the house just to look up the author's names, though. I will put the author's name up here. Oh, and of course, it'll be on the copy of the book. So I listened to this as an audiobook, and this one really was more of a cover interest. I don't think I've really heard anybody talk about it, but I liked the cover, this oceany look, and of course with the octopus on the cover. So I really had no idea going into this what this was about. So it is about this little aquarium in this place called Soul Bay, which is not a real place, but it's in Washington. The setting is actually near Bellingham. It's about this older woman who works at this aquarium, Soul Bay Aquarium, and she forms a relationship, a friendship with an octopus. So you actually have the perspective of an octopus. You have a perspective of this woman. There's a perspective of this young man who lives in California, is from California, but his familial past has history in Soul Bay. And he comes up to Soul Bay to try and understand where he's from, who he is, because he doesn't know who his father is. His mother abandoned him when he was really young, and he wants to know more about his past. And the older woman is dealing with a lot of grief in her life because she had lost her son at one point, and she recently lost her husband. She's got a life that's kind of in transition, and she doesn't exactly know where it's going to go. And then those are our main characters, but of course there's a lot of side characters that come into this story. And my favorite part of this from the very beginning was the perspective of the octopus. I loved it. It's really up my alley as far as what I enjoy about science. And there were definitely added elements to this that showed you that this author has done their research about marine life, and it was really fun to get this perspective. It was very unique and quirky. I would call this an adult fiction. I would say that there's a mysterious element to it, but I don't feel like it's intended to be a mystery. I was having a bit of a hard time connecting to the characters at the beginning. I didn't really like all the characters, especially the main characters. I really didn't like the male main character at the beginning. He frustrated me a lot, and his character did change quite a bit as the story went along. I felt like he grew a lot. And so I liked him a lot more towards the middle to the end of the story. The main character, she was definitely not a warm, fuzzy woman when you first got to know her. I don't think she ever became a warm, fuzzy person. But getting to know her better, you appreciated her more as the time went on. I always love reading books that are set in places that I either live in or am from. When I can see the familiarness, have the nostalgia of these places, I tend to really enjoy those kind of books. The strange thing, and I think the reason why I can't give this one a 5-star, I'd probably give it a 4 or a 4.25 star. I don't remember what I actually gave it on Goodreads. Even though this book grew on me so much and I ended up liking it a lot and I liked the ideas of this book, I listened to the audiobook. And the narrator was differentiating the voices, which is always nice because it's really hard to read an audiobook or listen to an audiobook when the narrator doesn't differentiate the voices. But all the accents used, they didn't make sense for this area. They didn't make sense for California. It just sounded like a whole cast of characters from Maine to New Jersey. And people do move here and move into California, but I felt like the accents were usually on people or with people who have been there their whole lives. And they just didn't make any sense for these characters. And I will tell you that for at least the first third of this audiobook, I was very distracted by the accents. It took the believability for the location out of it a little bit. You could tell that they knew these areas really well, California, Washington, but the audiobook made it very hard for me to believe it because these characters had such unique, interesting East Coast accents. More often than not, I struggle with audiobooks. And so I enjoyed it. And ultimately, I'm going to give it at least a 4-star, maybe a 4.25 star, because the story itself, I really did enjoy. And the characters I was able to form connections with. I loved the setting and the aquarium and the octopus and all of that part to it, and the role the octopus played in this relationship between these different characters and all the different characters that came in. I loved so much about that. And I really do like family dynamics, and I also like characters who grow because they learn more about themselves. There's almost like a found family vibe. I love that sort of thing. And so that's why I feel like I would probably have enjoyed this book even more if I had not listened to it. So not saying the audiobook was bad, just saying it confused me. It confused me big time. And so I actually went and looked up the narrator to see if they were from the East Coast, and they were actually from California. And I was like, if you're a fan of literary fiction, you like adult fiction, and you're looking for something that just, it's not quite as dark as other adult fiction can be sometimes, and it was a pleasant read. It was a really pleasant read. I really enjoyed the characters. If you like these types of books, I say pick up Remarkably Bright Creatures. I think you will enjoy it, and I am definitely going to reread it at some point physically. Okay, so that's all the books I'm gonna review in this particular Sunday Sum Up. I feel like I still got a lot in there, and yet I still have quite a few that I haven't reviewed. These are books I finished and haven't reviewed. Oh, and I've got to do my scratch board. So I do plan on catching up with that because I have a couple of things to scratch off. So yeah, I'm a bit behind. However, this is the part of the video where I like to go over what I'm currently reading. So I will share that with you, even though I may not get these books reviewed in the next Sunday Sum Up. At least you'll have an idea of where I'm at the moment. So I'm currently listening to an audiobook called A History of Wild Places by Shea Ernshaw, and I have heard quite mixed reviews on this one. However, I've also heard that it's quite atmospheric, and I tend to like those. It's a mystery thriller, and I've had a lot of success with mystery thrillers when it comes to audiobooks. I do find that audiobooks are a difficult place for me because sometimes it can really affect my rating of a book, which is unfortunate because I think that I might enjoy the book even more if I'd read it physically. So it seems that when I read mystery thrillers through audiobooks, I tend to enjoy them more. Maybe. We'll see. What's interesting is that the voice actor for this one, the main voice actor, at least the only one I've heard so far, I think there's supposed to be more, but I've heard one. He's the same guy that narrated A Merry Little Meet Cute, the male character in A Merry Little Meet Cute, which is funny because I really did not like his narration of Merry Little Meet Cute. I didn't feel like his voice lent well to a romance. However, for a mystery thriller, his voice is perfect. So I'm really enjoying it. I feel like he's bringing the darkness of the atmosphere because it is quite atmospheric. We're going off into the woods trying to find out where this woman named Maggie St. James has gone. And the main character is Travis. He has this ability to touch items, and when he touches them, he gets visions of like where this person was in the past, just like snippets and pictures in his mind of things that have happened to the people that have touched the item or that have owned the item. And so a lot of people hire him to look for their missing family members. Something has happened in his life that has made him stop doing this altogether. He doesn't do this anymore. He's kind of just driving off into the world, trying to get away from his past, when he gets a phone call about this particular job, about Maggie St. James, that he cannot resist because for some reason it hits a little too close to home. Maggie St. James is actually an author of a children's book series, and it's a very dark series that a lot of people were really upset about because it was so dark. And a 12-year-old boy, I think, ended up going off searching for the magical world described in these books and died of hypothermia. So ever since then, she's gone missing and her family doesn't know. Is she dead because something happened to her? Or did she just leave because she had to get away from the press and all the things that were horrible about what had happened? So that's where we're at. I like it so far. I think it's very atmospheric, almost feels a little gothic in nature, and that is something I really enjoy. I don't think it is gothic, just the way the details are expressed and how much we're getting of the setting makes it feel a little more gothic. So we'll see how this goes. Fingers crossed it's a good one. I'm enjoying it so far. I'm also currently buddy reading 2 books. One is Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. I'm on page 200, and as is true for John Steinbeck, for almost everything I've read by him so far, I still haven't read a whole bunch, but I've read quite a few short stories by John Steinbeck. I love his writing. I love his view of humanity. I love how he understands people so well, especially people who are going through the things that they've gone through in the periods that he's focusing on. So in this case, it's the Dust Bowl era and what people had to go through when they had to leave their homes in the Midwest, their land that they had lived on for generations after generations, and move to California, not knowing what's going to be there for them. I'm reading this with Mary Jo Erdrich, and luckily, we have both had a pretty busy May, so we're both behind, and that is working out well. But I'm enjoying the conversations with her, and I will link her channel down below, so go check it out. And the other buddy read I have, I just started today actually, and I'm reading this with Di from Deesis 19 Hearts. I will also link her channel down below. We are tackling this huge book. Our very first Sarah J Maas. It's for both of us. We have never read anything from Sarah J Maas, and it's exciting to be sharing this experience with Di. So this is House of Earth and Blood, the first book in the Crescent City series, and of the people that love Sarah J Maas, and even some people who aren't crazy about her, I have heard that this is a favorite of most people. And I am so curious to find out if I'm going to be a fan of Sarah J Maas, because there's a lot of opinions and I'd like to make my own. So I'm currently 24 pages into this, and I would like to be there by the end of today, but I don't think it's gonna happen because I gotta edit you. I'm gonna edit this video. And I'm planning on reading a certain number of pages a day. We are gonna span this one over the whole month, so I won't have a review on this one until the end of the month. So that's it for this week, and I do have quite a few other books that I have to review, as you saw. That'll be next week. I also am unsure of whether or not I should include the middle grade books that I got. Maybe I should do a separate video because I have so many of them. If you'd be interested in a middle grade haul video all by itself, let me know. Otherwise, let me know if you'd like me to keep it in the Sunday Sum Up. If not, then I just won't. And we won't worry about all those books. So if you've read any of the books that I reviewed in this video, let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts. I'd like to know if we agree, if we disagree, and it's okay if we disagree. I'm totally cool with that because everybody has their own opinion. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you can see what happens next week with all the other books that I have to review. There's quite a few of them. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later.